The only thing we've been listening to lately is Sophistopop.
What's that?
It's like Sade.
Oh, who doesn't love Sade?
Yeah, Sade would be like the shining example of that genre.
Oh, I
But
love
no
it.
one called it Sophistopop when it was happening. It's something retroactively, like yacht rock. You look back and you're like, oh, what was that? Like very sophisticated arrangements, perfectly recorded, like expensive recordings.
Sade's so good.
Smooth music.
Would D'Angelo fall under that?
No.
No?
No, because it's really something that happened like 1981. It started with Roxy Music's album Avalon. And
I love Roxy music.
I know.
Who doesn't love that?
And Brian Ferry.
He's
and
so good.
probably ended around like 92, 93.
Okay.
But that song, what's the song? I miss you like the deserts miss the rain. That's the one. Yeah. That's been our like.
Yeah.
That's like
I love it.
The gem of Sophistopop.
I love that.
But it's cool. I think I'm in my like I'm really in my 40s now, and I'm like embracing a certain elegance. Yeah. And I understand this music in a way that I always kind of thought it was like, bleh.
No, it's
and now
good.
I'm like, whoa, it's so lush
Yeah.
and beautiful and inviting and vibey. And so, yeah, that's the phase I'm in right now.
Yeah, it's good. Music-wise, I've been listening to a lot more electronic music. Just like there's so much good stuff. There's a lot of shit, but there's just so many good producers out there that like studied the craft and like put the time in to be like really, really good. And so
you're one of them, Noah.
Yeah. We consider you one of them.
Thanks. But yeah, I've been listening to a lot of that and just whatever else comes on my Discover where they decide that's what I should be listening to. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's this Dean Blunt song that's incredible. That just like
is it called 100?
No,
that's a good.
That
Dean
one's
Blunt
really
song.
good. I think it's called like Promises.
Oh, I know that one.
I think that's what it's called with the girl.
It's a Church of Chill classic. I got it in there.
I think that's what it's called. Hold on, let me look up because it's actually really worth telling people about.
If you want my music mix, it's patreon.com/Church of Chill. I put out a music mix every week in addition to our bonus podcasts.
Rinsed. It's called Rinsed with Tyson, Dean Blunt. It's really good. And then I've been listening to this song called The Spark by Cabin Crew, which is it's like 8 or 10 Irish kids and like 8 or 10-year-olds singing like some pop song, and it's so good.
Oh, damn.
I don't know why. It's just like a really good pop song.
Damn.
They're like little Irish kids. Like, dude, it's really fucking awesome.
Irish kids terrify me.
They're really scary.
Yeah.
I feel like they could kill you. But like,
I mean, like, the last time I was in Ireland, like fucking kids were fucking with us at like midnight. We're walking home drunk, and kids are fucking with us. Like, what are you gonna do against a kid?
Nothing.
Same thing in Romania.
Yeah.
A 4-year-old will come up to you at 3 a.m.
Yeah, with a knife.
Yeah, just like kind of like following you wherever you go, and you're
Don't
like,
like
what? They don't speak your language, so you just hand them off some cigarettes and move on with
Yeah,
your life.
exactly. The 4-year-old just chain smoking.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, kids are always the scariest. Like when I get like college age, and then I'd go back home and there'd be like high schoolers or middle schoolers, like a group of them. It's terrifying. It's
They're
like
the worst.
they can really hurt you, and
Yeah.
you can't do anything to them. They're menacing.
We're always scared of teenagers. We always cross the street.
Yeah.
Well, me and my boy Joe, shout out, and my girlfriend Kathleen at the time, we were 19 and got the shit kicked out of us by 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
At the mall.
Seriously, the mall. That's
We were
where
filming. We were like filming people and making fun of them and stuff. And don't make fun of 16-year-olds.
They will hurt you.
They will. Like
Yeah.
everyone else is kind of like, oh, these fucking assholes. And this 16-year-old kid on camera just takes off his watch, goes up. My boy Joe's holding the camera and just knocks him out. You just see the camera.
Yeah.
Melee ensues.
Yeah. I'll believe it.
And ever since then, I see a group of teens. I'm like,
Don't go. No, they have no fear. There's no fear of reprisal. They're just going to do the worst things humans can do.
I'm not ageist. Except in that way.
Yeah.
That way in particular, because I'm like, they don't know the ways. And in a group of boys, we know because we were them.
Yeah, exactly.
They push each other in the worst ways.
Exactly. I don't fuck with them.
No.
At all. They scare me. I don't understand that. It's true. I don't.
Damn. So, dude, what's going on with these drones?
I was just going to say.
I don't know how Cass and I haven't like deeply dove into this yet.
Because I know nothing.
Well
who does?
know that they're in Jersey, and you know they're kind of everywhere now, and you hear that they're not drones, that they're actually manned aircrafts, as though people can't tell the difference between a plane and a fucking drone. And you hear that they're aliens. You hear that they're military. You hear that they're potentially foreign government military. You hear they're also maybe like interdimensional orbs that are like manifesting into time space and then going away. I have no idea, obviously, what they are, but it is
what if it's
weird.
All?
It could be all of those things. It is weird that the government won't say one way or the other what they are or aren't. That's weird.
I think it's weird that they're like, this is not a aggressive force, or they're like, don't be scared of these things.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's weird. That either means we know exactly what it is and we don't want to aggravate, or it's us.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're aliens. I don't think they're aliens. That seems a little too on the nose. Although if they were and the government knew it, I also don't think they would say that they're aliens. It's probably, my best guess is like some government contractor like doing something
to figure out new weapons to drop new bombs in probably different places or
something weird. And then the other thing that I heard is someone was saying that they're AGI, that it's somehow AI has like become fully conscious and now like it's scanning and doing things like blatantly because it doesn't have any fear of like we can't do anything. Like you can't shoot them down. It'll co-opt those systems and so that to me, but I spoke about this today. I tweeted about it today. That I think everyone now, not everyone, but a lot of people really seem to be getting scared of AGI. And to me, it's just completely transplanting the fear. Like we don't have like an existential fear of God anymore as a society. Like we don't fear the gods. There's no Zeus that's going to come and rain a lightning bolt on us. There's no even like Jesus God who's going to come and like do the rapture on us. Like people aren't generally afraid of that anymore. So we've transplanted that and created like the new golden calf is AI and AGI. And now that's what the thinking man is afraid of. That AGI is now going to be our dominant, destroyer, creator, horrible thing. And we have no control over it. And it's going to overtake humanity. And I don't believe that at all. I just think it's the same old story. We are just like modernizing it and making it about AI and AGI and having that to freak out about rather than doing what people are always kind of shying away from, which is like going within, finding the inner divinity, finding the inner meaning of life. And we want to just, put that out on something. And that's like the dominant narrative right now. And I just don't buy it. Like I see so many people get so afraid of AI and how it's going to be like the machine overlords and they're going to take over everything from like, our jobs to, our military to, making humanity subversive to the machines. And it's like, okay, like we're not at Terminator levels. Like we're not. And
it is going to be used for malicious purposes or even just real purposes. And it's like, oh, you think that you do everything above board? It's like, wait till AI scans your whole life and where you are at every moment and everything and every email you've ever sent, every thought you've ever had. And it's like, oh, you think if you really scan, are you really above board in every way? And it's probably a lot of people are riding the line.
Well, not everyone is, I would think, but like, and then what? Like, and then
there's the AI, a computer decides, okay, you're going to go be in this facility where you have to work to pay off your debt. It's like, we're already like just different ways of indentured servitude and slavery. I think it's just all headed that way where we're all just like imprisoned.
Know. That's what people have been saying. Like a big narrative in the crypto world right now is like, people are like, you have to make as much money as you can as soon as possible so you're not in that position. That's what everyone is. That's not what everyone. Well, a lot of people in crypto are saying that. Like, this is the chance to make your 8-9 figures so you can not be part of the system where you're essentially an indentured servant. And to me, that's like, really? Like, that's how you're going to get out of it, by making enough money based on a technology that's inherently digital? Like, that's like the dumbest thing to me. Like, that's where you're going.
Well, you're
like,
so scared of being a slave to AI that you're being a slave to the technology.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Like you always manifest your worst fear.
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, I'm so scared that this is going to happen, that I'll do this, it's like they don't even see that, okay, now our new god is technology, to avoid the god in the future, which is technology.
Well, put my life side to side with someone who's like, I'm going all in on AI, crypto, whatever. I'm going to spend 24/7 trying to fucking hack the system to get out of the system. And I'm like, I'm going to go make 1 million friends while you do that.
Yeah.
Let's see who's happier at the end of the day. You go get your little nest egg and feel great. I'm going to have a whole bunch of friends that I'm partying with and have a good time and have had deep connected nights with.
Yeah.
And fucking great memories. And it's not about money, and it's not about like any of us trying to escape our problems through money or think we're going to get outside of a system by having a certain nest egg. If you do, and people started doing that in mass, the system changes to make you guys the poor people now. Like, it will always be shifting to keep the vast majority of us under the thumb of the elite. So what can we do about that? I'm like, make friends, make a lot of friends.
Yeah.
Deep connections, real connections that aren't based on financial fucking bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a more kind of like beat the system by doing it from within. That's always kind of been my philosophy as it pertains to money. It's why when I make a lot of money, I tend to give my friends and family a lot of money, because that to me is like the best thing you can do with it. It's like a token of love, it's appreciation, it's generosity. That to me is a very effective use of the energy that we refer to as money, like an abundance energy. That to me is like the best use case of it. I do think it's neutral. I think it's corruptive. It's a very corruptive force because it's so easy to conflate it with power, which is not really true. Like, it's not. Like, billionaires, if you did a survey of like happiness level, I guarantee billionaires are skewing lower than average than most people in terms of genuine satisfaction and happiness. There's a certain level where money is not going to increase your happiness, certainly not exponentially, but like even at all. Like it doesn't create like long-lasting joy. It will absolutely pull you out of a depressive state if a lot of your troubles are money related, which for a lot of people...
Well, then it wasn't depressive. That was unhappiness.
Yeah, or whatever it is. Like, you know, I listened to your guys' podcast about Luigi, and I think this whole thing is really interesting.
Shadow banned, by the way.
I'm sure. I'm like...
I didn't realize they still did stuff like that.
Yeah, dude, of course. Especially on YouTube and things like that. Like,
all of our podcasts are popping off in the thousands, and then that one's struggling. And I'm like, oh, it's because we talked about class consciousness.
No. That won't fly. Class consciousness and like that... That also is like a very interesting, like focal point it was like a tipping point in terms of how people are viewing society and like the inequity between people. I personally, you know, I don't share your guys' like view of like, I think this was like some hero who did some amazing thing. I understand why he did what he did. I think it's understandable. I get it. I don't think he's some evil cretin who's just, you know, what a piece of shit. You shouldn't be murdering anyone, which you shouldn't be. I understand what led us to that point. But I also think that that's probably not the most effective way of creating change. I think it scares people temporarily, but I think what systems tend to do when they feel that they're under some type of existential threat is clamp down even harder. And they do it in more subversive ways. So they'll change the protocol of not being so overt about oppressing people, but do it in other weird ways where they obfuscate what's going on. So I think stuff like that can actually have a detrimental effect when it comes to like changing the system. I do think
we want to destroy the system,
but that I don't know. The only way I can
do you need a predatory middleman between you and your doctor telling you, here's how much you charge him, here's how much you pay, and it's all coming to us?
Here's the better question.
And by the way, you might get denied your life-saving treatment. You destroy that system.
Here's the better question.
You don't go and change it from within.
To me, though, the question is even like it's a little bit different than that. Is the current system of like the medical like autocratic system, is that even something that's valid to begin with?
It's a cartel.
It's not only a cartel, it's predicated on keeping people sick.
Yeah.
There is no incentive, the way the system is set up now, to permanently cure people. There is no incentive to tell people, go out and be in sunlight. Go out and eat healthy foods.
The incentive is to do the opposite.
Exactly. It's because then it keeps you sick. It keeps you poisoned. It keeps you... I mean, a lot of people don't agree with RFK for a lot of reasons, and this poor bastard was eating McDonald's on the plane with Trump. This poor guy. I feel so bad for him. But he's a weird guy. But
that was compromat. That was they did that to fuck with him.
It was so messed up. But anyway, I do think, and I listened to his whole book, the Fauci book, which I thought was very interesting. And I think he has a very... kind of black and white and simplistic way of looking at things, which I don't completely agree with. I think there's a lot more gray, but the medical system, I don't think it's just a question of like, is the health insurance system like need to be like more open and accessible for people. On one level, of course, like people like your sister need access to a certain level of medical care where the standard of preventing seizures and making sure she's okay exists, and that needs to be provided for people who have those conditions and have things that can be treated with modern medicine, without a doubt. Not saying we don't. I'm not like, you know, a Scientologist or a Christian Scientist who's don't take ibuprofen if you have a cold. Like I've seen it with my sick kids. I hate giving them medicine. I do everything in my power not to. But, you know, Gabe, my middle child, had a seizure from a high fever once. So when he gets a 103, 104, I give him ibuprofen. And I see that it brings his fever down. And I'm like, I know this isn't great for the liver. And I know there's some natural things we could do to bring it down. But in this moment, this is the best thing. However, teaching people or allowing people to have channels of access to learning how to be healthier, learning how to naturally fight things that happen in their lives, like whether it's a virus like COVID or a congenital disease that you're born with or an autoimmune thing that can happen based on behaviors. That to me is fundamentally far more important than destroying a medical system that clearly is just fucked. At a certain point, it's like, do we play within or try to change or destroy a system that we know is corrupt and is almost beyond saving at a certain point? And if we agree that that's like not something we can really change or even destroy, it's so hard to destroy. It's like the military-industrial complex. You're not really going to be able to destroy that outside in, right? Maybe inside
Public
out, possibly.
Option. That's why Obama wouldn't do it.
Exactly. I mean, that's why Obama was one of the worst. It's a
signature from a president.
Yeah.
Destroys an industry that is a cartel.
But you're embedded in the cartel when you're president. I mean, the things you have to do to become president of the United States.
You there.
Exactly.
That's why Obama got rid of the public option at the last second. That's why we put him there with a supermajority.
Yeah.
And that's when he turned on the people. So don't fucking praise that motherfucker.
No,
we could have had health insurance,
it's also,
which changes the face of work in this country. And like Cass was saying before, indentured servitude comes off the table.
That's a huge...
Because if I don't need to go to a predatory middleman, which is the corporation I work for my health insurance, why don't I just go work for myself? I can go directly... the government that is on my side is going to negotiate prices for me, and the doctor's going to have no choices. Everything's going to be affordable. Well... that opens up a lot of space in my life. There's no more thing of medical bankruptcy hanging over your head or potential medical bankruptcy. If you have an autoimmune disorder, you have to rent your life to a corporation.
You do.
That's fucking sucks, man.
Yeah.
Like one little fucking thing different in my body and I have what my sister has and I have to be fucking working for a company. Yeah. And that's a best case scenario.
Best case, yeah.
And
also you have to participate in a system that is raping the planet. So it's not like you're, there's this innocent corporation.
It's terrible karma. It's bad. I want out of it.
That's why I was so kind of befuddled when COVID happened. And then all of a sudden, so many people, a majority, were like kind of praising Big Pharma. And like the vaccines, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Everyone, so many people were convinced that the vaccine and all of these things were like not only like needed, but a good thing, a healthy thing to do. And I just never understood that all of a sudden pharmaceutical companies now are some benevolent saviors who are like looking out for the well-being of people. And it's not that I think even the people who work for these companies are evil or malicious by nature. I almost can guarantee that the majority of them aren't. But it is a system that creates and self-perpetuates itself, and then all you can do as an individual or small collectives, which is, I think, really where like the cap is. I don't think you can get much bigger than small collectives to actually change this, is how do you remove yourself from that system, educate yourself to the degree that you can actually be as healthy as possible, not just physically. I think so much of our health is determined by our minds, by our beings. I don't think someone like your sister can just think differently and not have seizures. That's not what I'm implying. But what I'm saying is that there are support systems that can be created. There's spiritual health that can help you kind of deal with things that are difficult that you may be dealing with in life. You know, a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, it's not like they're going to, you know, positive mental attitude themselves into walking again, but how can they live a life that is one of meaning and feels joyful? That's achievable. I'm not saying it's easy. I don't think I could do that if I was in that situation personally, knowing my character and how I am. But I do think it's possible. And I think those types of questions and figuring out how to work outside of these systems is a much better use of our time and energy than trying to figure out how to like destroy the systems or change the systems.
Oh, yeah.
And that's somewhat nihilistic in the sense that like I have detached from like changing a system. It's why I don't vote. It's why I don't participate in the political structure. I think it's why Trump appealed to a lot of people, as he represents that, whether it's true or not, as he's outside of that to some people. He's not really, but he represents being outside of the kind of political, you know, elite or system that exists. And to some extent he is, to some extent he isn't. But that to me is representative of what a lot of people are looking for. It's how do we detach from these systems that seem to be intruding more and more into our. It's almost like a Chinese finger trap. It's like the more you try to struggle against getting out of this system and fight against it, the tighter it gets, the more impossible it is. Pushing your fingers together is the only way to get out of it. It's counterintuitive, but like leaning into your own resources and your own ability to kind of create change, that to me seems the only effective way. And there's any number of options. Like for me, what's been effective in my life, at least from like a lack abundance thing, has been crypto. It's not always fun. It's not always effective, but it has worked enough in my life that it provides me enough resources to like stay sane to an extent, and also like be able to provide for my family and myself and like friends and family. And that is not to say it's crypto is like a panacea and it's for everyone and that, but there is something in everyone's lives that is that could be your creativity. It could be your physical well-being. It could be your, you know, spirituality. It could be anything. But like, those are the things that I think the more we get freaked out by drones, AGI, military industrial complex, medical industrial complex, it's imperative to kind of continue to go within and figure out like what actually makes us feel alive and feel like human beings. Like that is the only solution I've ever seen. And I don't think it's an easy path. I think it's probably one of the hardest one to do. It's so hard to stay focused internally when everything is so externally vying for our attention. But that's the only thing I potentially see as like a way out of any of this stuff that seems to be like very doom and gloom.
And it starts with humility and being able to see it as a joke, kind of.
Yeah.
And this too.
Totally.
And like, that's what I was talking to Cass on the way up here. I'm like, we made a couple prayers at the beginning of this year, which was 7 days ago, and they're already kind of coming through true in a crazy way, which was, hey, let's get some new fresh friends in here. We love making new friends. Let's make some new friends. We already made like 4 new friends this year.
Awesome.
This year.
That's so cool.
And I said, I'd love to have a little bit more patience. And my patience has been tested in a way that I don't think it's ever been tested before. I'll go into it when we do a solo episode of what we've been going through lately. But it's crazy how quickly those prayers, if you hold the intention, how quickly, and if you're paying attention, how quickly they get answered. And the thing with, I feel like that's what I'm going to need to get through this year. And it felt like I don't even come up with that idea to pray for that. But I think I'm going to need friends and patience to get through this. And on the way up, I was like, what is patience? And what did you say?
I said spacious awareness.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about a whack-a-mole game. When my dad pisses me off, I need to shut off the thing. When this person does that, do the opposite of what you want. Or you could just create all this real estate and just say patience is spacious awareness.
Yes.
And this too. And this too. And now there's drones.
Now there's drones.
And now there's class warriors named Luigi. Have you ever met a person named Luigi in your life?
No.
Does this seem real?
No, and
what
such a good-looking dude. Like, what
3D
is
3D printed Zac Efron, motherfucker.
What is this guy? He's got
What
the
the
lineup when he comes out of jail.
Everybody wants some.
It's so crazy. Like, it's really wild.
Yeah. And look, we don't even mean to, in our podcast, I hope it comes off as humorous. We have Luigi from Mario Kart as a screenshot.
Yeah.
But, like, of course it hits on my, like, 20-year-old fucking revolutionary punk rocker. But I also see it as quite funny and interesting because the elite carry out targeted assassinations every day.
Yeah.
And we love it and we cheer it on, and it's reported on the news as heroic.
Yeah.
And we do one targeted assassination the other way, and they perp walk this guy in a way that looks like fucking straight out of The Dark Knight Rising or some shit.
With the mayor behind him, like
Meanwhile,
fucking
the
Commissioner
mayor's
Gordon.
under indictment.
Okay,
Meanwhile, this
can we
guy's
talk
fucking
about-
fully corrupt
Can we-
piece of shit.
All right, let's talk about Mayor Eric Adams because this is the funniest thing to
America's
me in
mayor.
the world.
Yeah.
Okay, he got indicted for the funniest thing. First of all,
I actually don't know much about this.
I do because he got indicted for taking bribes from Turkey and for Turkish Airlines business class. I've flown Turkish Airlines business class so much because I'm in Turkey every year, multiple times a year. It is the worst gift you could ever get. And also,
guy ruined his life over that.
and like $100,000 of this. That's like 10 flights. It's not even that great of a business class, and it's really gone downhill since COVID. It's the funniest
I just assume
thing.
that's always happening to everyone.
It
like, I
is.
mean, our
That's politics.
Clarence Thomas.
Well,
is,
that's a whole other
like,
thing.
what are we
That's real.
talking about? This guy's on the
problem
Supreme
with Eric
Court.
Adams is he didn't do it enough. You have to. You can't do
that's the
100,000. You do
thing.
10 million,
That's
and
right.
that way they're like, "What? You got to go Nancy
Yes.
Pelosi
Yes.
levels with your corruption."
I agree.
I went in here as a regular citizen, and now I have $300 million.
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
What is going on? That's the and she'll never do
That-
a day in
Never.
jail for it.
Or her husband. Never.
Yes,
he
he
did get
did
hit
it
with
on-
a hammer, though.
he did get hit with a hammer, whatever was going on
like,
there.
Not great. But no, the thing with him is just like, I don't think he's actually going to get in trouble. I think when you look at the actual indictments, it's pretty fucking weak sauce. Like, it's really like, it's not very strong. Nor do I think like,
If he steps down, it's going to be like Al Franken stepping down.
yeah,
It's going to, I mean, like, I don't even mean to
It'll
say.
backfire.
it's not a big deal.
doesn't
He'll
look good.
come out. He'll come out like
I'm just like the American population just voted someone who takes bribes and is corrupt, and we all know it, and it's all out in the open, and we're like, all right,
Well,
he's
this
doing
is-
favors.
This is what like I think of. I don't know why it pisses certain people off, but I'm like, Donald Trump is the quintessential American.
Yeah.
He's a fake rich guy
Yeah.
here on behalf of the elite to tell us that we need to give the rest of our money to the elite.
yeah,
And we resoundingly cheer it on.
yeah.
He is the quintessential, like that is America in a fucking nutshell.
That's why he won.
His life should be studied
Yeah.
because he is the American. You know?
Well, you also get in with Donald Trump, which I find to be perhaps the most interesting thing, is the whole time travel, Barron Trump, Tesla thing, which to me is like really,
I don't know about
really.
this.
Wait,
oh
what?
my God, this is one of the most interesting things about the whole Trump saga. So I think in the 1800s there was a book written. I could be wrong about it. It could have been the 1900s, called Barron Trump's Wild Adventure or something like that, and it's about a time traveling person.
Look it up.
who has gone through time and space and altered the course of history, kind of like Back to the Future and Biff, right? Like you got the almanac things, you can do the sports stuff. And what's very interesting about it is when Tesla died, all of his stuff was kind of put into storage. And the person who bought all of Tesla's stuff was Donald Trump's uncle, I believe, or maybe great uncle. Mm-hmm. So he bought all of Tesla's things. And it was rumored at the time that Tesla was working on time travel and all of these different like quantum wave functions to like alter time and space. So there's a theory that this book that details very much the timeline as what happened with Donald Trump is actually Baron Trump somehow being able to go back in time and alter the course of history and then writing a book about that, kind of like setting the stage for all of this wild stuff. Because if you look at the rise of Donald Trump in terms of becoming president, it's incredibly improbable. It just before he was ever president, no one could have believed that he could have been president. It was a joke in The Simpsons. It was just like not a thing that was ever really like even entertained. But now, obviously,
it's why we made our movie Trump Rally, because we're like, this is a temporary phenomenon.
Yeah.
And we left the rally. Yeah. That was January 2016. We left it, and Cass was like, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't just because he's like The Apprentice. It was people really believe in him and think he stands for something and speaks to them.
People were struggling.
And I honestly could not understand a word he was saying. He was like...
He makes no sense.
He, like,
if you go to one of his rallies, it's
he's
like
talking
word
about
salad.
we're like an Oreo cookie and then screw the Oreo factory. I don't even remember what he was saying, but I was like, what are you even talking about?
And that's the reason I actually enjoy him, is because that level of like buffoonery and nonsense, it's at least entertaining.
It's Baron Trump's world, and we're all living in it, basically. But I think all the stuff with like The Simpsons is so funny, and it just reminds me we have to be really, I don't know if careful is the right word. It is what it is, but every thing we project out of the world, maybe The Simpsons created our universe. Yeah. They participated in creating the universe we live in. We're all decorating what our universe is going to become, and so how we see the world is how the world becomes. So if we all watch The Simpsons and we all see the world becoming this way, the world becomes this way.
And especially The Simpsons, because think about what goes in. It's not like a thing that someone wrote and then someone acted and filmed. No. This is something someone wrote, someone voice acted. 50, 100 people had to sit down and animate. Yes. Think about how many people are charging up this thing.
Yes.
And so maybe they like that. I mean, look, we're being fucking super far out, but I could see why.
No, there's no explaining it any other way at this point.
I think it does make a lot of sense though, because like I do believe that our impressions of the world create our reality. I believe that from an individual and collective sense. I think that's why we can have these weird synchronicity and premonition events take place individually in our lives, but also like mass consciousness wise. I think like I'm very convinced that that's how our reality functions. So there is no stranger than fiction. It is, we are creating our reality by what we project out there. Not every single thing we put out and say into the world is going to happen in this timeline, but a lot of those things are, and a lot of them will kind of coalesce, and us as individuals kind of join up with other souls or people and move through timelines and experience them together. But it's also why people who live in the same world can live in completely different realities. Like our lives, how we experience it day to day, is not the life of Jeff Bezos. It's not the life of a kid in Somalia who has no food. Like they're different, completely different realities, yet we share this kind of time-space continuum. But what we put out into the world and what we believe and what we affirm through our collective beliefs and emotions, that is what our lives are. And that's why, drugs like ketamine or psychedelics, I think are so impactful for people, because for just a little bit of time, you get to kind of like lift the veil or look at it from a different perspective or dissociate from your current consciousness or your regular consciousness, and you kind of see like where the threads are just temporarily. And that's
what Luigi did. And I understand what you're saying about the clamp down, but the consciousness crack that he created throughout this country and the world is like, There's no undoing that.
What it is, and what you're describing, and what Luigi did, is he created a mass deep realization. And when I think about that word, I think of a real, it's gaining your real eyes, a real-eyes-ation. You're decalcifying something, you're rinsing away the lies, and you're able to see the world in a whole different way. Drugs definitely help.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes these cultural moments that have people being like, damn, I was asleep at the wheel, you know? And this little fucker came along, or these drones came along, or whatever, and it helped me gain my real eyes.
Yeah.
And it helped me see through the lies. And I think that's what's happening right now on a lot of levels. Even the calendar switch over to 2025 felt like when you go to the eye doctor and he's like, is this better? You're like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot more now, and it's fucking intense.
Yes.
So now it's like, how do we integrate?
Yes.
How do you integrate?
Yes.
How do you integrate the realization that your prayers are getting answered instantly?
Yeah.
That the things that you speak into this world are affecting the auric field around you. That worrying is charging up the negative auric field of fucking future events.
Yes.
Like, how do you begin to integrate this magic that we all possess, that we are just fucking just using like crazy and not responsibly?
Yeah, not responsibly.
It's a heavy realization.
It is, and like it's why like one of the first kind of like warnings I would give when I was doing the imagination episodes of Synchronicity is that like just understand like this all sounds like sexy and fun and manifesting your dreams and living in a dream world and like having every your desires met, like it's awesome, but it is going to fundamentally destroy your life the way you know it now. And that is both exhilarating and terrifying. And to think it's only going to be fun times USA and exhilarating is really naive.
It's going to be balance time USA.
Yeah.
In the long run.
It always is. And like
that's what it is.
For people like me, that is, you know, I've chosen a particular path where I get very high highs, but I also get very low lows. Me too, bro. I'm comfortable with that. I think if you're not comfortable with that, then you shouldn't go for those experiences. But like, you know, I've learned how to appreciate, like I've really gotten to a point, and it's easier when you're not in it, but like I really am grateful and appreciative for all of the bad shit that's happened, for all of the ebbs, for all of the troughs, for all of the dark days, for all the depressive moments or periods, even if they're long, because like it does give you that contrast for when you're in the flow or the good times or things are happening and you're experiencing the heaven on earth or whatever. You really begin to appreciate it on a magnitude and a level that you otherwise I don't think would be able to. You just wouldn't. I always say this, like if you were a god, let's say you are, but let's say you were experiencing like an omnipotent reality for yourself, and that's all there was, and there was never any down, there was never any not getting what you wanted, you wouldn't be able to appreciate it because you wouldn't know there was anything else you would get. And I do believe that is what creates our lives. I think what we experience as human beings, this kind of disconnected consciousness from the divinity of everything that is precisely because as omnipotent divine beings, you don't want to stay in a place where there's no change. It's boring. It's not like fulfilling. It's not anything you can appreciate over the long term. So you say, you know what, let me detach myself from this oneness, from all that there is, and play this game of hide and seek where I have to rediscover that I am everything. That's the game. And I think mystics throughout the ages, when they come to that realization, try to, you know, say it or convey it to the best of their ability using whatever paradigms or, you know, language that they have. But that's the game that we play, and I think that's a very cool and fun game to play.
And you got to love both ends of it.
You do.
And those low frequencies, my mystical language for it is I call that the dark sparkle.
Yeah.
And I've been fucking having that the first week of this year, where you're like, I'm so close to the edge. My death force has overtaken my life force.
I know that.
And it's very freeing.
Yeah.
And there's weirdly on the edge of madness, insanity, and even wanting to live.
Yeah, I know.
Is like a dark sparkle. I was at a concert the other night with that, and all of a sudden I'm like, yo, people are looking at me different. And it's weird because I just feel like I have this like kind of just like fuck it mojo about me. Yeah. And these aren't people I know. I'm at a concert.
Because he almost walked into traffic earlier that day.
Because I was really just on the edge. Really on the edge.
What's going on,
I was
dude?
like, what is this? And it's the dark sparkle.
I love that.
And I can glean a lot from that and bring it back and say, I can't live there.
Yeah.
But when I do, I still got mojo. And look, it's no one else's fault, but I'll just say this: it's like outside factors. We're such empathetic people that when our family's struggling, we really struggle.
Yeah.
And there is no separation between them and us.
No.
So it's kind of why we've had to turn off the news since I used to watch the news, and now ever since Trump first got in, I can't because I'm too attached. I'm too empathetic. I'm too main character centric. Yeah, it's all bullshit.
It's not.
But yeah, I don't know, some family shit. Just really, it should affect us. Yeah, and it should affect us in this way. Care. But we can't overdose on it, and I overdosed on it in a way that was making me really feel. I think you get the same thing as me. I can fucking flourish in darkness as long as I feel like things are within my control. Like I could still make a decision that made a difference. Yeah. And in this situation, when it's family members and this and that, it's like. Yeah. What can I do? I'm swimming in these feelings with you. Can we do something about it? No, we can't. My hands are tied. Yeah. That starts to send me into the downward spiral. Yeah,
I know that well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to deal with that stuff, but I always think that like when we do come out of it, and listen, you could come out of it through dying. It doesn't always have to be in life. I don't want to make it seem like everything. I mean, you will die at some point.
That's ultimate dark sparkle.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what happens then? Although I'm pretty optimistic that it's pretty dope. But
it's a bright sparkle.
It's graduation.
Yeah, it's kind of graduation. It's and you get to decide whether you go back to school or go back to where you'd like to go. And I personally just like, I do know that when I look at my life on the whole, retrospectively, or even looking into the future, even in the present moment, it's easy for me to say way more good times than bad times. Just if you add everything up, it's not even close. It doesn't mean when you're in the not good times, and I hate to even use the word good and bad, but like when you're in the kind of like muck in the mud of like the shittiness of what can happen.
Heavy.
Those feel, when you're in it, like that's all that there ever was, and that's all that there will ever be, and it's just, you're stuck in it. But if I am honestly like looking at the whole of life, my life at least, it's pretty fucking awesome. I think it's why I think when those of us who can experience like magic in our lives, why we appreciate it and enjoy it so much, because you realize like you're working with something pretty fucking cool and awesome in life. And even if you don't feel like that all the time, it's always accessible, even if it feels like it's not, and you can't quite get there, and you're struggling. Like I was saying when you guys got here, like past 2.5 years, I couldn't buy $1. I couldn't buy $1 for $5. Like I could not get money to me. It was cut off. It didn't matter how much effort I put in.
You were finger trapping.
I was finger trapping. I couldn't, whatever I tried, no matter how much value I provided, no matter how great of a thing I came up with, I couldn't get it to work. And then at a certain point, I kind of just let go. And like I didn't give up. I didn't stop trying things. But like I was like, you know what? It's coming. I know it's coming. I don't know when. I'm just not going to exert patience. I'm not going to exert the same level of frustration, trying, craving, energy, forcing. I'm just going to let that go. And almost to a T, like almost to the day when I made that decision, and it's not like it was one moment, but when I got into that mindset, everything flipped. It was such an I Ching moment where you were at like the maximum of one energy of like darkness, nothing working, lack. It just flipped into the opposite of like pure abundance, pure flowing. And I don't make the mistake this time of thinking that it's going to last forever and then like it's permanent. but I think I've learned enough over the years, like, to at least figure out how to carry over some of that abundance mentality to have it like ride past when things aren't just flowing constantly all the time, to have enough of that abundance mentality. I'm not saying resources. I'm not saying money.
It's
I'm not
two
saying
different things.
It's very different things.
Because you could have all the resources and not have the abundance mentality.
Totally. But it's how to maintain that mentality regardless of what the conditions and external circumstances are. And I think every experience I've had up until now has kind of led me to a point where I'm actually prepared to do that. Whereas before, I was still thinking every time everything was flowy and happening, I was like, oh, this is forever. Like, this is just how it's going to be forever. The market's never going to go down. It's not, I'm always going to be this much in love. I'm always going to be this much level of joy. It's like, that's not really how things work. No.
And it's not as fun when they do.
Of course, that's my whole point.
Why wouldn't you permanently want to feel like anything?
That's exactly my whole point with why we go into this limited, fractured consciousness experience, because it would be so incredibly boring to just be an ecstatic being all of the time. It seems great knowing that we have suffering. It seems like, oh God, all I would want is the pure alleviation of suffering. What could be better than that? You think about it a little bit more and you'd realize that. You wouldn't be here if you didn't.
It hurts so good.
Yeah, it hurts so good. It really does. And like, that's a fucked up thing. It's masochistic. It's sadomasochistic in like a weird way, but like, it's a very important realization if you want to be able to navigate this particular existence with any level of grace, like with any level of gratitude, because otherwise you're just constantly going to be going from good to bad to good to bad. And I've played that pendulum game for a long time in my life. And it's not even like it's such a terrible thing. It's just so thoroughly unsatisfying.
You're in the judging mind.
Yeah. It's just constantly, you're just going back and forth between one fucking thing to another. And it's like, after a certain point, you're just like, can I get off this ride? Well, like, I don't like it anymore.
I think like we've all had this experience of like, especially when you're first experimenting with drugs and you get a little too high.
Yeah.
And the terrifying thing is you think this is the way life is now. Yeah. But once you have some experience and you realize it's not, when you hit those rough patches, you're actually like, well, actually, this is going to kind of wear off. Whether it's in 12 hours or 40 minutes, it's going to wear off. Yeah. Let me see what this is.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the dark sparkle, because I knew the other day, I was like, this is about as bad as it gets for me. It doesn't get much worse than this. Let's have a little machismo about it. Yeah. I can walk around in my shadow with my fucking dignity a little bit. Yeah. So I fucking got dressed up and went to a concert and put on my sunglasses and took a bunch of drugs and fucking danced my ass off with new homies and old. Fucking met an amazing Hasidic hippie who goes to like every fucking Dark Star Orchestra, Fish, Disco Biscuit show. So it's like, and that pulled me out of it.
Yeah.
Being like, oh man, he's the only one from his community that comes to these things solo. How did this happen? And it sparked my interest and my curiosity. And my curiosity has always been the way out of the dark.
Yes.
So I think this time when I've gone to the darkness, I take the example from my drug experiences and say, this isn't going to be forever, so let's take something useful from it that's not just more of a sob story about me. Because, come on, I've done that. Like, I've already done all the fucking sob stories. They're so boring.
They're so boring.
Victimhood is so boring. And it's something that it's like weirdly our ego clings to. It's like the low-hanging fruit of, like, fucking psychic breakdowns. It's just like, first and foremost, right, I'm a victim. Everybody knows that. And it's like, you sit there making a case for you being a victim, eventually you're gonna be one. And that's what happened to me, and I got buried. And now I'm fine.
There's three things that Jessa brought up as a concept. I'm sure she didn't create it, but she mentioned it and it really stuck with me. This idea of victim, villain, martyr, right?
She stole that from us, like a lot of things.
This idea is like incredibly poignant because most people are constantly playing one of those roles. And it's so hard to get out of one of those roles. I'm the victim. Someone is doing this to me, or the system is doing this to me. Or I'm the savior. I'm the good one. I'm trying to do all these things. People appreciate it or they don't appreciate it. Or I'm the bad guy. Look at all these horrible things I've done to people. Or these people think I'm the bad guy. To be able to detach yourself from those roles and just kind of like observe what is going on in your life, in life, like that's when you actually can find and get curious and see some really interesting aspects of reality that otherwise you just completely miss and gloss over because you're stuck in this idea that you have to be one of those three things. And it's like, if you look at your life and your relationships and your job or your career or whatever you're doing, chances are you're in one of those roles. And you, as soon as you have that realization that, oh, I am the victim, or I am the villain, or I am the martyr, then you can start playing around with like, do I want to be? Is this something that's working for me? Is this like a role that I enjoy playing? Am I being cast in this role without my permission? Am I casting myself in this? Am I pigeonholing myself into this role over and over again?
I see myself as the savior. My family sees me as the villain, and therefore I'm a victim.
Yeah, like, exactly.
All right,
it's
cool.
Like,
I have my story for this year. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, it's like, it's
who
just,
needs it? Because there's so much. Because that's such a small plot of land. That's a tiny cul-de-sac
so
in an infinite universe.
Exactly.
And you're like, when you get off that cul-de-sac, you're like, oh, okay, there's actually a lot of other things outside of these shame and blame cycles. And
so much.
And just constantly just labeling everything in yourself. And when you're labeling things, you're clearly judging them. And that's what Cass was telling me on the way up here. She's like, patience is getting away from the judging mind.
Yeah.
You know, the judging mind, it like has this urgency that is false.
Yeah.
And like the real way to reclaim your fucking life is to slow it down, because time is the only fucking thing that we don't get back. So you can dilate, you know, and you can constrict and contract your sense of the way you're experiencing time. And I think that is something worth giving up all this bullshit you're talking about for. Is to figure out really how to get behind the dials there. Figure out how to make a good day feel a lot longer.
Speaking of time, did you ever see Tenet?
Not yet. That's the only Christopher Nolan movie I haven't seen.
But I just saw it. What a mindfuck of a movie. It's not my favorite movie of his. I'm now, like, Inception used to be my favorite. Interstellar is like, oh my God.
Dude.
Jesus Christ. I've seen it now like
achievement.
5 or 6 times. It's beyond. It's beyond how amazing that movie is. Tenet is really interesting. It deals with time inversion and all this like weird pincer time movements. Totally worth checking out if you're a Nolan fan, which I'm a huge Nolan fan. Really, really, really interesting. And I think it speaks to... it looks at time in a very unique way, especially when you're dealing with like sci-fi time travel stuff. It really changes kind of, it can change your perspective on what time is and how it functions and how it works and like what it's capable of. Kind of, can you get it back? Is there this cyclic loop of kind of like existence you have to run through, or is it alterable, or are you just playing out a script that was already predetermined? It plays with a lot of those concepts. He's obviously like a fucking genius. Like he's
like a cinematic mystic.
Yeah, he's a cinematic mystic.
There's there's sonic mystics like Laraji. Yes. We saw him the other night, and there's people that can tap you into a realm through cinema.
It's so fucking incredible. Like,
people that have a grasp on the concepts we talk about all the time, but can do something about it in story form.
Oh, I love it. Those are
really
my favorite
cool.
people.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite. And that's like, the way to access that is what you described. It's getting beyond or past or circumventing that constant push-pull dynamic of whether it's victim, villain, martyr, or just judging. That's where, like, when you get curious about what's outside of that or what's beyond that, that's where you can start telling stories. You can start making music. You can start making films and art and all these things. And to me, just through my life, when I connect with a piece of art, that is when I feel like the most alive. That's when I'm like, oh, this is what I'm here for. Like, this is why I'm alive. This is why I'm a human. And I think a lot of people feel like that. They may not think about it in the moment, but
that's why I cry at concerts.
Yeah.
And I never really know why, but I'm like, look at us all paying attention quietly to this thing. And when you just have that 1 second of realization of how cool humans are.
Yes, like a Satori moment. It's pretty amazing.
Oh my God. And it gets me. It gets me every time.
Yeah.
And the bigger the band, the more, like the Rolling Stones. I was having a baptism of tears during fucking Satisfaction.
I love it.
And it's just like, it's like, this isn't like a particularly moving song.
No.
But the whole vibe here is like generations of people coming together because fucking Keith Richards woke up with a riff in his head one morning.
Yeah.
And we're all here fucking dancing to it. 60 years later, what the fuck is life?
Yeah.
And I get into that, and it's just like, that's what triggers it for me.
Yeah.
That's what triggers
It's
it.
a
Those
Sag
moments
Moon thing,
of realization when my real eyes come out. I'm a much more emotional guy than I come off.
Of course. Sag Moon.
Wait, why is
dude.
it Sag Moon? I think of, I don't know why.
Well,
that's
just,
what we share.
I know you guys share that. Cancer Sun and Sag Moon.
Cancer Sun and Sag Moon is a crazy emotional combination because you have like the homebodiness and like wanting to nurture and love as your expressive side, but internally your moon and the way you feel is you just want this expansive kind of like all-encompassing emotion to like dictate everything in life, not just your mood, but everything in reality. And when you can get in touch with that and when you can express it, and I think at least for me in my life, like until I started like physically traveling and like experiencing more of the world internally, obviously had a lot to do with it with psychedelics, but like actually getting out in the world, that's when I started really appreciating like more of my life because like I was honoring like seeing the emotion of the world and seeing how like different places you go to, whether it's a concert or a different country, like you get in touch with like Sag is, ruled by Jupiter, Zeus. It's expansive. It just wants everything to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Hundreds of episodes. We're not. We've been doing our podcast for how long?
Yeah, God,
we started at the same time. We don't do things half-assed. It has to keep going and keep expanding.
Yeah, it's an expansive kind, and it's almost like a compulsion because it feeds an emotional part of your life, which to me is like most people's driving forces. There are some people who are not in touch with their emotions, I think usually to a detriment, not always, but like to me that's like without emotion, like I wouldn't want to be here. Like it would just be like if you zap the part of my brain that allowed me to feel emotion, I'd be like, what's the point? Like
eternal sunshine.
Yeah, exactly. Like what are you doing? Like it's just not, it's not a life that would be worth living to me. I know it's kind of fucked up to say, but like that's what imbues experiences with meaning is your emotional connection.
Yeah, when
to
he's
them.
like in crisis, he won't even consider taking like a Xanax or anything.
No
like he would never consider it for a second.
Because it's valuable. It's valuable being down there for me.
It's very valuable.
It's because I'm like getting out cobwebs. I like things clean, and I'm like I can't always get down there. And I'm down there, and I'm like I got my new vacuum. Let me just fucking do this.
Yes.
And like. This is why I'm envious of your life. You have the perfect setup for a fucking Cancer Sag Moon guy.
I do actually, weirdly.
Because dude, if I had this, I would come off as sparkling clean to the world. If me and Cass held separate homes, or you know what I mean, or like or if I had any, not to say there wouldn't be slip ups, but I think that it would be like you set yourself up good for knowing what kind of emotional dude you are and being a father. Yeah. And this is the best place you can be a father, your own space to do it and do it your way.
I really get the best of both worlds. I mean, the truth is like most of my life is spent being with either Denise and Aslan or here with everyone. Now Denise and Aslan are usually here with the kids. So like I'm basically a dad and a partner 99% of the time. However,
you have this.
I can come here during the days. Mm-hmm. I can fuck around with music. I can do crypto. I can play Diablo for like a few hours. I can stay up late at night and do kind of whatever I want. And I think what I realized in my life is that's not something I should feel bad about. It's actually something that will allow me to like sustain and have more energy. Like I've been so much more present in everyone in my life knows this over the past like year and a half, even though like emotionally I haven't felt I've been so much more present. I've really been spending time with my kids presently, not just being there. I've really been spending time with like my family and like friends. Like that to me, like I realized is like far more important than doing what I'm supposed to be doing or being the person I'm supposed to be. And regardless of what I'm doing, as long as I'm like in that mindset of honoring like what I need, I usually end up having a greater capacity for being there for other people.
Right.
I didn't understand that until I became a father, until I became a husband, until I became a husband again and in a relationship, that was really productive for me. I do think that having 2 domiciles, 2 homes, I know that's not like achievable for everyone, is like a revolutionary thing. I really think
if you can't do that, 2 beds
really
exactly goes a long way.
I know that for a lot of people that can like rub them the wrong way, like that can be like, oh well, you're not, you don't love your partner enough, like you wouldn't, but like it's not even whether you actually are sleeping in different places, it's just the mental option that there are separate spaces that you can like when Denise comes here with Aslan, a lot of the time she will leave. She'll go somewhere else because she has the ability to go back to her place and get in her space and do what she wants to do. And then she comes back and she's feeling good. She took care of what she needed to take care of. I have that same ability too. And like, that's like, there's a level of sanity that comes with that if you're forced to not be in that for whatever reasons, you don't even know the havoc it can be wreaking on your life. And like,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Bro.
And even if it seems unattainable, that should, if that's something that sounds interesting, put it as a goal. Put it as a desire.
Well, if you don't put your oxygen mask on, you'll stop breathing.
And you know then you can't do it for anyone else.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that it's hard to.
It takes a while.
Navigate.
Though. It takes a long time.
And it's like
it starts today.
It's also remembering and then forgetting. Oh, you forget to take care of yourself. You forget that you need to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of other people.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to remember all the time, and it's certainly easier to preach about it and speak about it when you're feeling good, but
they're prayers. This is how you remember before I was like, by worrying you're charging up a negative auric field. By doing this though, you're doing the opposite. It's like, let's charge up the auric field around our lives. And
I think that's what we do with our podcasts almost more than anything else. It's obviously it's us sharing whatever we're going through at any given point, and whether that's about current events or just things in our lives. But I think in a weird way, when I started doing it in 2015, I realized that when I'm feeling like particularly mystical or really in high spirits, it's almost selfish to not put that out in the world if there are people who are receptive to it, because I don't want to get like too highfalutin and fucking sound like an asshole here.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Yeah, like if you can provide some beacon or like light that people can connect with, that like I've gotten enough feedback over the years to know that like even when I feel like I'm just mentally jacking off and like doing nothing of substance here, people are connecting with it and they do understand, like there's some service that's being provided. I feel like it's almost it's like selfish to not do that at a certain point. And I think,
and to show straight-laced people this is not what you want to end up like.
Yeah. That's another really good point.
That's a service in itself.
Don't do this.
This
is not it. This is not it. But I mean, I do think that as we go through time and as whether we're evolving or devolving as a society and as people, there are more options we have for living our lives differently than ever before. And to think that you don't have that ability or don't have that opportunity, that's sad. That's fucked up. That's what we shouldn't have to make people think. Like I do this all the time, like whether it's a crypto client or when I'm doing social media help with whatever the fuck I've done over the years, just like energy readings, I'll hear a lot of people be like, I'd love to do what you do. Like, first of all,
hear that all the time. It's like, did somebody prevent you from starting a podcast and building a community brick by brick, making the bricks?
Yeah. And it's like, first of all, you probably don't. Like, you probably don't want to do it.
Smoke.
You don't want this. But if you did, like, there's nothing I possess inherently, truly, that you don't possess that prevents you from at least attempting to do it. Sure, maybe you can't speak extemporaneously for an hour and a half all the time. But you know what? Sometimes I can't either. It's not like I can do this all the time. You don't need all of the talent and skills. You just need a little bit of belief in yourself and then the ability to get up off your ass and actually try to do it.
Well, it's better. No, it's better than thinking, if only I did this thing. Do the freaking thing and then be like, oh, that's not what I want to do. Or, you know what I liked about doing that? I'd rather do more of this. You know, it's like, otherwise, we're just stuck in this place of being like, if only I could get it together to do a podcast. Just do the thing and move on.
How long did we talk to you? Like, no, we should start a show called The Come Up.
Yeah.
And then pandemic happens and it kind of ties our hands. We're like, we're going to go ahead and do it. We do it. And we're like, Noah, you didn't want to have anything to do with putting out a fucking multi-cam daily show.
No.
Just so you know. The vision that I had for us doing this would have been cool. We would need a team of people.
It would have been insane.
We can't do it.
No.
So we did 100 episodes, knocked them out and said, all right, cool. No regrets. There's still people that are like, I loved that. And I'm like, well, our numbers went way fucking down. And that's not why I'm not doing it, because I think we could have gotten it to trend the other way. But
it doesn't scratch the itch, man.
It didn't scratch the itch. And I didn't know it didn't scratch the itch till I did it.
You do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot better to find
documentaries
out.
do, and that is very tried and true for both of us.
Yeah.
So why not keep making our movies, you know? Doing a weekly podcast definitely scratches a weird itch. We started the podcast to promote the documentaries.
Yeah.
And now it scratches a whole different itch that documentaries couldn't come near.
Well, I still have an idea. There's two things I would like to do with you guys.
Yeah.
One is I really like the idea of a regular salon in Brooklyn because we have the space, we have the ability, I think we have the communities. I think we could do that pretty much whenever we want. Second is I really like the idea of not exactly like what Sam Talent is doing, obviously, but like traveling to places and doing pieces. I think would be so dope. Like setting this up in Jamaica, setting this up in Prague, or setting this up in Turkey. I would
never think that you'd be the guy that would want to do stuff like that.
I would love to do that because like
let's do it.
I love traveling. I actually have the ability. I have a partner who is incredibly supportive of that and would like, you know, not everyone would allow their partner to just like fuck off for a couple of weeks and record something. She might even come. But the point is like those two things to me seem very achievable and very doable. We'll see how things play out.
We could go do little heroes journeys that are a week long. We come up with them. We set forth the challenges and we film it.
I think it would be cool. And I think
people
would like it. Yeah.
That would be really cool.
I think so.
That's a great one.
I think so. And I think, you know,
see, I don't think like that because I think of you have to be here.
I don't.
Okay, great.
Yeah, dude.
Great.
Should we go to Turkey, get the full...
You really should.
We get our we can go on a medical vacation.
You really should. You really should. First of all, it's amazing there and she knows all the people.
Have you gotten the medical work?
I haven't. Like, she wanted me to go to the dentist there. I was going to do my hair there. I didn't do my hair. But Turkey is also just incredible. Also, you'd be on like the yacht. It's like the coolest thing. But Turkey's amazing. It's one of the coolest places. But you think of me like that. Dude, I took 22 fucking flights this year.
I know.
22 fucking flights.
I took 2 or 1.
Dude, I was everywhere.
Drive places.
Fucking Italy, Germany, Turkey, fucking Indiana. I went to fucking California for a day. I literally flew out for Mark's party just to say, and flew back the next day. And they're like, did you really just do that? I was like, yeah. I also told everyone to buy Fartcoin way back then. Everyone's like, ooh, that's funny. Fucking everyone would have been a millionaire by now. But,
who's laughing now?
You know, whatever, fart it up. But no, I really think that's a cool idea, and I think that's something that would just be very fun, and it's doable. And my mind opens up to those possibilities, obviously, when I know that I have like the resources to make it happen, but I'm trying to get out of the mentality where I think that I ever don't have the resources to
do
make it.
What we're talking about. You don't really. Well, you're one of the very few people who have seen our movie Wild Magics. Changes have been made, yada yada yada. But you got the vibe. It would be like that, but focused on us. Here's the people that are living that, not just necessarily the people we meet. And we're behind the camera. We're in front of the camera.
I think it'd be really fun.
Cool. We're having an adventure. Here's a person we met. Here's a place we went. Here's some thoughts we had.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Well, it was the salon and then the travel.
The salon also.
Very easy.
I want to shout out a new place that's opening this month in Kingston, New York, called The Bridge.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Run by our brand new friend, Nicole.
Oh.
And we're going to have her on the podcast. She has an incredible story about how she arrived at building this amazing space for community and connection.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And, dude, it's not open yet. We went in there the other night, and I pictured us doing this there.
Oh, it couldn't be closer. My dad lives in Kingston.
Yeah.
10 minutes over the bridge.
And there's heads there. I didn't realize what Kingston was.
Yeah. It's a big community.
Oh, they're going to be doing a lot of ambient churches there now, too.
I love that.
Because we just went to...
We went to Laraji Ambient Church.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, my God. Well, Laraji is like a legendary New Age musician.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it on our own episode. But like the Ambient Church, they basically go and they rent a church, they laser map it, and they do a light show. And then Laraji comes in. They switch out musicians, but Laraji was the person this time. Packed church at night, shut off all the lights, spotlight on Laraji, and then the most insane light show you've ever tasteful psychedelic light show you couldn't take your eyes off of.
The guy who does ambient church in the city moved upstate, so now
he lives in the Hudson Valley. So we got to connect with him. I think we have a mutual connection already, and his name is Brian Sweeney.
Cool.
I can't believe I remembered that.
It's funny how you guys left the city and now everything is outside in the Hudson Valley.
We were just talking about this on the way up. And it really helped us expand our consciousness because like we're going to meet up with our friend like Julie Holland, the author. She wrote all these incredible books, and it's like they live in the Hudson Valley. All these people live in the Hudson Valley. We used to think we had access to it when we lived in the city, but we were just visiting. Now that we live up here, we're like, it's essential we find these people. Whereas when we're in the city, we were only around other people that felt the need to stay in the city like us. When you're up here, you're getting access to all the people that were like, we lived down there too.
Of course.
We did our time.
Yeah.
We all did.
You know who lives up here?
And now we're here.
Is Daniel Craig. My dad ran into him at some hardware store the other day. My dad is badass. He walks up to him and he goes, you know who I am? And he's like, oh, are you visiting? He's like, no, I live here. He lives here with his, I think, isn't he married to Rachel Weisz or someone? Like, they live up, Rhinebeck. Like,
I've heard that.
Yeah. It's like
I want to have your
spot.
dad on the podcast.
My dad is so crazy.
Yeah.
He would come on, I'm sure.
I would love it.
I don't know if you could be on the same episode, though.
Fuck
no, he'll just talk shit about you. It'd be hilarious.
I would hate it.
He'll be like, there are two types of people.
Noah's both of them.
No, wait, can I say it? There's the holier than thou and the know-it-alls, and my son is both of them.
That sounds exactly like something he would say.
Sounds like something my dad would say too.
That's definitely my dad. No, he would be a great guest. I mean, he's really a very
when baseball season gets gearing up, and I get to fucking have hope for the Mets, like around March, April.
God, sports, man. Awesome. I lost fantasy, by the way, by 1 point. I just, I can't even.
Yeah.
I can't. It's the second year in a row I finished in second place. The Dolphins are just missed the playoffs by 1 game. Tyreek Hill wants to quit now. I just can't.
That's amazing after what happened to their quarterback, though, right?
Yeah, sure. It's amazing. They still fucking missed the playoffs. God fucking.
I think I love sports so much more that I've taken it back to the childlike wonderment, and I've detached myself from gambling and fantasy. Yeah. Because those things really got me into the nitty-gritty of sports.
Yeah.
But now I just love it like a kid again. I know the players because I know the teams that have played the Mets. I know the Seattle Mariners because they come into 1 weekend a year, and that's when I learn their players. Not who their fucking people are waiting on their injured list to come off to be the new closer.
I know.
And I better make the trade by. Like, it controlled my life because I'm too much of a
special. The fantasy baseball is a whole other game. That's the real fantasy
full-time
sports.
job.
That's real deal. I did that for like 4 or 5 years. It's so fun.
He gave it up when he met me.
Yeah, it's really. I wanted to devote that energy towards Cass.
It's legit.
And it worked.
Oh, God. I loved fantasy baseball. Yeah, I had to give it up, too. Football, I'm down. I used to do like 11 leagues. I do 2. I do 1 dynasty. I do 1 regular big money. It doesn't take up too much of my time, but God damn, man, I've been so close both years, and it's just like, ugh.
Dude, would you do a little bit more on our Patreon episode?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
For sure.
Join us for part 2 on patreon.com/churchofchill and Noah's Patreon, patreon.com/synchronicity.
Yeah.
Join his fucking thing.
Yeah.
Support this man.
It's doing good.
For Christ's sake.
Yeah. I don't need the money, so just join for fun.
But if you do need the money, we'll talk about get rich quick schemes on part 2.
Yeah.
Peace, love, and magic, y'all.